You see that you stand at a crossroads. Straight ahead, you can see the dark alley that I've set up on the table with the miniature terrain and such that you can go to explore and see if you find the person you're looking for. Also, to the left of the crossroads, you see like an abandoned warehouse. Which way do you choose? An abandoned warehouse? An abandoned warehouse, you guys! You want to go to the warehouse? Are you sure you don't want to go to the dark, forbidden alley where your quarry may lie that I've already set up on the table? I have never wanted anything more in my entire life than to go to the abandoned warehouse, you guys! Abandoned warehouse! Abandoned warehouse, I get it, alright, oh boy, Alright, the abandoned warehouse it is. Do you want to be a better dungeon master? Me too. Hi, William Tramp, also known as This FNGM here, ready to talk to you today about one of my favorite game master tools, the Adventure Anthology. Adventure Anthologies are collections of adventures that you can run at your table whenever you need one, and they're pretty short, which is very nice, but we're going to get into all of that in a second. I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer about today's video. Today's video is a want to be a better dungeon master advice video, like I love to put out, but it's also kind of an unpaid commercial or advertisement. I am not paid at all. I've not been provided anything that I talk about today for free or for promotion. These are things I want to talk about, but there's one product in particular that I'm going to kind of center on as this video goes on. So if that's not your bag, check out one of my other videos. They're pretty decent too. All right, so with that stated, let's go ahead and talk about Adventure Anthologies. So as a dungeon master, I am running numerous games every single week. There was a point in time, I think, where I was running like 5 games a week, which is pretty insane, and my wife and kids very much missed my presence at home, so I've narrowed that back down to 2 at this point. But when I'm running games, one of the things that I really want, desire, need is more time to prepare for, something to entertain my players with when they sit down at the table. And I find that the Adventure Anthology helps me immensely in this regard. Adventure Anthologies, as I mentioned before, are a collection of short little adventures or lairs or locations, little things you can drop in to your games that's already fully prepared. Now, sometimes, of course, if you'll want to kind of edit some things to make sure it works for your current campaign if you're running one. But that's not strictly necessary with a lot of these. I find these tools, again, to be immensely valuable for so many reasons. Again, if I hit a slow moment in a campaign I'm running and I don't know what to do next, I can grab one out of there. If I want to do a quick pickup game of Dungeons and Dragons, I can grab any one of these books. If I want to playtest a class at a certain level, let's do it. Really, I also use it often just to highlight a miniature. Hey, I've got this sweet beholder. I don't know what to do with it. Wait, I bet there's a tiny adventure that I can at least get a chance to throw it at my players and show off my paint job. So, there's all kinds of uses for these. Now, I have a ton of these adventure anthologies, and I kind of want to go over some of them with you right now because I think that this tool is heavily underutilized. And I think a lot more people should know the true use of these anthologies. First, I want to talk about the type of anthology that's really useful for, say, your one-shots or just dropping into a random game. Dungeon Delve from 4th edition, I'm sure some of you may remember this book, was probably the best book 4th edition ever released, in my opinion. Now, I know there's a lot of opinions about 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and we're not going to go into that today, but I loved Dungeon Delve. Dungeon Delve had these little 3-room dungeons that you could just pepper in at any point. There's a couple of fights, traps, and some hazards, just real quick things that you could do to, burn up some time. So for instance, you're running a campaign and the players decide to go left instead of right. Okay, hey, that happens. Freedom of choice, right? But you don't know what to do to entertain them with, so you need to buy yourself a little bit of time. You could run a random encounter. Sure, those are pretty fun, but you could also just grab back and forth edition, we could have just grabbed Dungeon Delve and toss one of those little layers in. It made for a great session. Also, these types of anthologies that have these more unconnected little one-shots, what they allow us to do is they allow us to just run a one-shot. You want to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons, but you don't really want to come up with a big, massive storyline? Sure! grab an adventure anthology and hit the ground running. I love it. The great thing about adventure anthologies also is that they aren't typically divided out by, having, it's all for 8th level adventurers, because, you're only going to be able to use so many of those. Instead, adventure anthologies tend to put in a number of adventures, each tailored to different levels, so that way you can use it all throughout the course of a campaign or whatever level of play that you want to try out. Another great book along the same line as Dungeon Delve would be Fantastic Layers by Scott Fitzgerald Gray, James Introcaso, and Michael Sly Flourish Shea. Fantastic Layers is again, very similar to Dungeon Delve, along that same vein. This one's for 5th edition. What this book is filled with is just a bunch of full-on layers for big, scary, interesting monsters. I think that is also a great tool because we get a little bit more meat in there. It's not just 3 rooms, and there's kind of a unifying tie. The story got a little bit better, but again, it's not so restricting so that you can't just toss it in wherever you want to go. So also a fantastic resource. Now, not every single adventure anthology is a random collection of different adventures. Sometimes they are unified by some sort of theme. A great example would be from the 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons era, the Great Modron March. The Great Modron March is sort of a whole campaign that was written by the way, my apologies, Monty Cook and Colin McComb. It's sort of a whole campaign centered around the idea of the Great Modron March, but really what this book is a series of connected short adventures that you don't need to run them all for, with that Great Modron March kind of set off as the background. This is a great book to use if you, say, want to inject this theme into your world, but not necessarily 100% focus on it. Whenever Monty Cook makes adventures, by the way, one of the things I love is that, or at least a lot of the adventures I've seen him do, what I love is that they often are created like puzzle pieces, right, that sort of connect together. He gives you, adventures that are kind of set sporadically at different levels and different points in an adventurer's career, and then what you do is you kind of take this one, but there's space in between, and then you fill in with a different adventure that he's written to create a full campaign. If you ever want to see what I mean, grab the book Ptolus. It gives a great example of how these types of adventures are made to work. But we're not here to talk about Ptolus and Monty Cook. That'll be a different video for a different time. Another themed adventure anthology would be Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which came out for 5th edition a few years ago. Ghosts of Saltmarsh is sort of an introduction to the Greyhawk setting for 5th edition, but mainly it's a collection of just sort of linked together adventures, all based in one location, the village town of Saltmarsh. So that's another way you can link these adventures together, is just by purely by location. And this anthology is really good for when you want to, have a location base, but you're not quite sure what all can you do with one sleepy town. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot. 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons has absolutely no shortage of adventure anthologies. We've got the award-winning Journeys through the Radiant Citadel, which is tied together by a extra-planar Wondrous City. We've got the classic Tales from the Yawning Portal, which is an anthology of classic adventures throughout the history of Dungeons & Dragons, including my very favorite starter adventure of all time, The Sunless Citadel by Bruce Cordell. We also have Candlekeep Mysteries, which is a location-based anthology all centered around the great library of Candlekeep within the Forgotten Realms setting. And we have the Keys from the Golden Vault, which is a collection of heist adventures sort of centered around the theme that the heroes are a part of a heisting organization. Now, in my opinion, you can't have enough adventure anthologies. That's just more options. And even if I only use like 1 or 2 layers from the entire book, or 1 or 2 adventures from the entire book, I still find it pretty worth it because, hey, I've gotten multiple nights of fun out of that. Wonderful. All right, I want to go ahead and switch gears and talk about the newest adventure anthology in my collection of these improvisational tools. I am talking about MCDM's newest book, Oops, All Layers. Oh, I'm sorry, Where Evil Lives. Where Evil Lives is an adventure anthology of the drop-in style. It's very similar to Fantastic Layers, like I mentioned before, where it's centered around just these little layers that you have, 5-page adventures usually, to just kind of toss them wherever you want. The unifying theme isn't really anything thematic as much as it's all centered around Flea Mortals' villain type monsters. Now, Flea Mortals, you may remember this book, I did a contest and gave one away. That might be a spoiler for what's at the end of this video. Flea Mortals included the villainous monster type, which is sort of between a base level monster and a legendary. You take a base level, you give it some interesting options that it can use outside of combat and beef them up a little bit, but not quite to legendary status. Villains are awesome. I use these all the time. So, Where Evil Lives is a collection of adventures and layers that are all centered around these villains. So it's kind of a theme, but I'm going to say it's more of a drop-in style anthology. Now, Where Evil Lives is an interesting book in the sense that when they created Flea Mortals during their Kickstarter, MCDM realized that the layers that they were going to put in the end of that book, there were just too many of them, so they had to make another book, right? Otherwise, this would have been, the biggest, thickest book ever. Not the biggest, thickest book ever. That's a phone book, and we don't use those anymore. When was the last time we saw a phone book? Anyway, here's my point. Where Evil Lives covers a ton of adventures levels between level 2 and level 20. Each layer has a different villain and their lackeys who are helping them protect whatever they're trying to protect, or helping them, conduct evil. That's, I guess, another one of the unifying themes. I mean, it's called Where Evil Lives, so pretty much all of these guys are hanging out, lifting a chalice to evil! But I wouldn't necessarily call that a theme. It's just hokey and fun. Where Evil Lives is a tool that I plan to use at my table a lot, especially since it is filled with a lot of the stat blocks from Flea Mortals. Like, each single layer or adventure in there comes with like 3 to 7 pages of stat blocks from Flea Mortals. If I didn't know better, I would actually believe that Where Evil Lives recreates the entire Flea Mortals for you again. That's not true. There's tons of monsters that were not able to make it into this book, but we instead get layers. Not only do we get layers, we get these beautiful maps that go along with it. We get these beautiful art pieces. Check out the cover by Grace Chung, by the way. One of the things I really appreciate about this book, and I just want to talk about this for a second, one of the things I really appreciate about this is how bright this cover is, because usually when we see anthology covers, they're kind of dark and foreboding. Oh, here's where evil lives. But they went a different direction. They put you at the last point of light that the heroes get to see before they walk into the place where evil lives. If you look really closely, you can see that these statues are kind of smirking, or at least this one is. I love it. Okay, great art choice there. I plan on using these a lot because they're easy to run and they are complete, and also I just happen to love MCDM's design. I haven't gotten to run them really though yet because the book literally just came out. I think it arrived at my doorstep like 5 days ago at most. Okay, so here's the thing though. When I received that book, that package, I opened up the package and I saw this absolutely beautiful cover staring at me, and I was really excited to run it. And when I picked it up, I noticed there was something really odd about it. What I noticed was that underneath there was a second copy. Now, I backed this on Kickstarter. I did pay for this, but I did not pay for a second one. So I reached out to MCDM and I asked them, hey, was this an accident? What happened here? I didn't want to end up getting somebody else's copy. That would have made me feel terrible. So I was prepared to send it back to them. They did some research and it does turn out that it was a mistake. It was not intended that I get two. But they did decide that they'll just let me keep the second one because I'm assuming they don't want to go through the back and forth of forcing me to send it back. And again, it wasn't forcing. Hey, MCDM, if you're watching this, if you ever want me to send something back that I got accidentally, I am more than happy to get that back to you. But that's not what was decided today. Today, they decided to let me keep 2 copies. So here's the thing. I don't need 2 copies. It's a great book, but I do not need 2 copies of it. So the decision I've made is that I'm going to keep one. This one's mine. I kissed it. It's mine. I've claimed it. This one, I'm going to go ahead and give it away to one of you. It's another contest. This contest has the exact same rules as my last contest for Flea Mortals does. You have to accomplish 4 steps. Step number 1, you need to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's right there. Hit that subscribe button. You also might hit that like button if you want, but you don't have to. It's fine. It's fine. Then you need to comment on this video. You need to comment your Twitter handle. Comment your Twitter handle. You're at what? I need to be able to find you on Twitter for this to work. Step 3, you need to go to Twitter, go to my Twitter, the link is in the thing below, at thisfngm, and you need to find my pinned post talking about the video that you're watching right now. Repost that tweet. Then, while you're at it, step number 4, the final step, you need to follow me on Twitter. Okay, so that's 4 steps I need you to accomplish. I know, it's a lot of work, but hey, you might get a free book out of this. Also, I will be covering the shipping and handling. Now, before anyone asks in the comments, I'm going to just say it right off the bat. This comes out of my own pocket. I don't have a lot of money. I have yet to monetize any of this, although I do have a Patreon if you want to join that. Joining the Patreon has nothing to do with this giveaway. You do not need to join my Patreon, but I do put a lot of cool things on there. Because it's coming out of my own pocket, I am limited on funds, so I am going to ask that this sticks to U.S. people in the U.S. only. Sorry, international people. I'm working on putting together some money to be able to start expanding my contests out, but for right now, we're going to stick to the U.S. Okay, so you go ahead and follow those 4 steps. Once you complete them, you will be entered to win a copy of Flea Mortals. This exact copy right here. Now, this contest is going to last until January 26th, a Friday at midnight of 2024. January 26th, 2024 at midnight, this contest ends. I will then take a look at all the entries, and then I will announce the winner on either the 27th or the 28th. Okay? So this, instead of doing a month like I did last time, which was way too long, I decided to go ahead and just make this contest 2 weeks. All right. Well, contests aside, Adventure Anthologies are an amazing improvisational tool for every DM to be able to use at their tables. And Adventure Anthologies are not just for Dungeons & Dragons. Plenty of other games have compiled these anthology-style books for whatever game that you are playing, and I highly recommend having them at your table. There's a lot of great tools for DMs to use out there. You know, DM screens, fancy dice, lists of random names and random tavern names. But for me, one tool that is always at my disposal is an adventure anthology. All right, that's all I had for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.